What actually is neuromechanical matching?
It's bunk, it doesn't tell us the prime movers, mate.
Leave my presence PhD.
My leg!
Let's go over neuromechanical matching.
Neuromechanical matching has nothing to do with prime movers and is completely separate to how your brain picks a movement pattern. What neuromechanical matching does is tell us how our brain recruits muscles or muscle regions depending on a specific joint torque. It tells us that the brain preferentially recruits muscle fibers that have best leverage. So for example, here your biceps have best relative leverage, so your brain is going to preferentially recruit it. Here, the brachioradialis has best relative leverage, so it's going to preferentially recruit that. And this allows us to be more efficient as human beings because by preferentially recruiting the muscle fibers that have best leverage, we're going to be maximizing the amount of joint torque for the amount of muscle force that we're producing compared to if we recruited muscles with worse leverage. Well, we're just wasting energy for no reason. The reason why I said it has nothing to do with prime movers is because I can have a muscle that has best leverage yet is not a prime mover, and I can have a muscle that's a prime mover yet not have best leverage. For example, in a narrow grip row, the rear delts are what have best leverage, yet the lats end up being the prime mover because the rear delts, even though they have best leverage, they're a smaller muscle and they get motor neural recruitment maxed out relatively fast, so they end up having to move on to the next muscle, which is the lats, and the lats end up being the prime mover of the exercise. So the term prime mover is useless for hypertrophy because I can have a muscle that's a prime mover yet not have maximum motor neural recruitment, and I can have a muscle that's not a prime mover yet have maximum motor neural recruitment, as you saw in that exercise. The last thing I want to go over is, doesn't matter if you train a muscle where it has absolute best relative leverage, or as long as it even has a teensy bit better relative leverage, that's all that matters. Well, here's the thing, these internal moment arm length measurements, these are just the averages for that muscle. So we do want to train muscles where they have their absolute best relative leverage, because let's say for example we got two muscles right here. This muscle has better relative leverage than this muscle, but like I said, these measurements are just the averages of these muscles, so there still might be some muscle fibers in this muscle that have better leverage than the muscle fibers of this muscle. But if we try to make sure that this muscle has its absolute best relative leverage, we can minimize that as much as possible. So I think that is the end of the physiological fundamental series. If you go through the entire series and understand everything, you will understand how hypertrophy works. So go through that, tap in, and help yourself off more.